Okay, I'm going to discuss the four Gospels of Christ, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, in order of which they're presented. And I'm going to present them in how the book is broken down, the timeline, and when it was written, and the purpose of which it was written. So Matthew, I'm going to start right off. It's going to be one of the four synoptic Gospels. Actually, it's the first, and we see synoptic, and we go, wow, what a word. So let me first define that. So what synoptic means is a general view, summary, or principles of, and gospel means was the life and ministry of Jesus. So let's put synoptic and gospel together. Synoptic gospels, putting them together, summary, which means the summary or main principles of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. So let's get down to it. Book of Matthew. It was written to show the Jewish people that Jesus was and is the Messiah that the Old Testament speaks of. The book of Matthew can be broken into three parts. Now remember, you can break it in different ways and speak to it about different ways. However, it can be broken into three parts. It's the prelude to Jesus' ministry, the Jesus ministry in the Galilee, and Jesus in Jerusalem. Now Matthew shows the timeline of Jesus born in 5 BC. The Magi visit Jesus 1 year later in 4 BC. And it's kind of funny because as we're kids, we all grow up and think the Magi show right up when Jesus is born. At least that's what we think when we're doing the presentations of Christmas time. But it is, they visit 1 year later. Jesus then his family settles in Nazareth in 3 BC. John baptizes Jesus in AD 28, and Jesus is crucified and resurrected in AD 31. And that shows Matthew writes his gospel somewhere between AD 60 and AD 85. Let's move on to Mark. Mark, the purpose of Mark was to show the servant in Jesus and to make disciples, or to help you make disciples with a servant leadership position. The book of Mark can be broken down into its 5 sections. Jesus' ministry in Galilee. Second is Jesus' journey to Jerusalem. Third, Jesus in Jerusalem. Fourth, the plot to kill Jesus. And fifth, Jesus' victory on the cross. So the timeline of Mark shows Jesus born in 5 BC, same as Matthew. Jesus' family settles in Nazareth in 3 BC, same as Matthew. John baptizes Jesus in AD 28, and Jesus is crucified and resurrected in AD 31. Pretty much the exact same thing, it's the exact same thing as Mark. And you're going to see in the 4 Gospels they're all the same, except they add a couple more dates, which feeds right into the dates that Matthew and Mark wrote down. Now, Mark writes his Gospel somewhere between AD 60 and AD 85. Moving on to Luke. He writes his Gospel to show the humanity of Jesus Christ and his perfection as a human, because there's no other human that's ever been born or will ever be born that was perfect except Jesus Christ. The book of Luke can be broken into 6 parts. The first part is the birth of John and Jesus, John the Baptist. And second, preparation for Jesus' ministry. Third, Jesus' ministry in Galilee. Jesus' Jerusalem, so Jesus' Jerusalem journey, or the journey to Jerusalem. Jesus in Jerusalem, and Jesus' resurrection and ascension. Timeline of Mark shows Jesus born in 5 BC. Here's the addition. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus escaped to Egypt in 4 BC, which is the same time that the Magi showed up. So in other words, the Magi warned them to leave, and they left through and into Egypt. So Jesus then, his family comes back in 3 BC and settles in Nazareth. Young Jesus talks with the priests in temple in AD 8. John baptizes Jesus in AD 28, and Jesus is crucified and resurrected in AD 31. Luke writes his gospel somewhere between AD 60 and AD 85. The last of the 4 Gospels is John, and he writes it to prove the deity of Jesus Christ. The book of John can be broken into 3 parts. The prologue, Jesus' public ministry, Jesus' farewell discourse, and Jesus' passion and resurrection. The timeline of Mark shows Jesus born in 5 BC, Joseph, Mary, and Jesus escaping to Egypt in 4 BC, just like in Luke. Jesus' family settles in Nazareth in 3 BC, which is the same as the other 3 Gospels. John baptized Jesus in AD 28, same as in Luke, and Jesus was crucified and resurrected in AD 31, as the other three Gospels said. John writes his Gospel somewhere between AD 85 and AD 95, and those are the four Gospels of Christ, or the four synoptic Gospels. Thank you.